All right, bass lines. That is my job today. So this video is intended for the Xenon Records Masterclass suite. I teach an 8-hour workshop on bass and all the aspects of post-processing and different things about bass lines, basically. So I can't teach that in this video. So I'm going to try and keep this to a maximum of 2 hours. And that means I'm just going to make it short and sweet, but very informative. So bass lines are definitely a mystifying aspect of Psytrance production. I get many people asking me all the time, students and other people, about how to make a good bass or how they're struggling with their bass, asking me how my bass sounds, so big or driving or whatever, this or that. I kind of attribute their struggle to just the obstacle they have, that is synthesis. So if you know basic synthesis, then you'll understand how to make a bass quite easily. The course I teach is mostly on how to personalize your bass. Just about the first 2 hours or so is about synthesizing the bass. After that, I'm just describing different avenues you can take to make your bass unique or personalized. Making a bass is very easy. That doesn't mean, though, that it isn't important. As we know, if your bass sucks, then your track kind of sucks, right? So, gotta have a good bass. Very integral to the track. It's one of the main things that the dance floor listens to. One of the main things that a listener will focus on when they first put your track on. Is the kick and bass good? So, let's get right into it. I'm going to teach this class using Serum. Now, I know that there are many Serum bassline tutorials online. Maybe one every 2 days comes out at this point. And the reason why I'm teaching it in Serum as opposed to another synth that I might prefer is because I think everybody has Serum by now. So I'm kind of assuming that since everybody has it, we all know how to use it, and it won't be such a, new thing that we all have to learn together. We are going to get into some unique post-processing tips that I like to do in my production. So that might be where my tutorial varies from the ones already existing. I'm going to use Ableton for the tutorial. However, I don't really use Ableton for production. I usually use Logic, Cubase, and I use everything actually. Logic, Cubase, 3D Loops. I use Ableton as well. But everybody seems to have Ableton. Everybody seems to know it. So we're going to teach it in Ableton. Okay. So I'm going to teach you how to make this bass. All right, I'm going to put in some placeholder content here. See how it sounds in context. All right, you get the picture. It's a pretty good bass, actually. I made it just for the class, and I like it a lot. I might use it in a track. So we'll see. Okay, so let's open a new project, start from scratch here. Yeah, sure, I'll save it. Okay, first thing we're going to do, press tab, get to our timeline, and let's set a BPM. I'm going to do what I did before, 141. Nothing special about that BPM, just decided to choose it. Why not? Sounds kind of cool. Something to note, I'm going to use a kick from my sample pack, Archive from the Deep Volume 2. A lot of people have Archive from the Deep Volume 1. I've gotten a lot of really good reviews about it for the last couple of years. Many producers use it, and I frequently hear the samples in production these days, so that's very humbling for me. I really like that. Anyways, I'm going to use a sample from my new pack, Archive from the Deep Volume 2, and the cover looks like this. So keep an eye out for this. This will be released close to when the video is released, maybe a week or so after. If you want to follow along, though, and buy some of my other stuff, you can just go to my website here. It's nikroma.com, Nikroma.com. You can buy my other Archive from the Deep pack, Volume 1. There's a whole bunch of stuff here already. But soon this website will be obsolete because my partner in crime and best friend, Nicola Hypogeo, we are starting a sample pack and preset company, and my Nikroma website will be phased out for this website, cultaudio.org. So that is our new business we're starting, Cult Audio. Keep an eye out for it. Check it out. It's going to be really cool. We have tons of new products coming out, a lot of new sample packs from both of us and some from other artists as well. A lot of tutorials and just a great resource for making music. Of course, making dark prog. We're going to have a lot of stuff for that. But we're not only going to be subject to dark prog. We're going to do all kinds of stuff. So check it out, cultaudio.org. I would take you to the website now, but I'm still creating it. So hopefully by the time this video is out, that website will be live and you can buy some cool stuff. Let's get right back to it. Let's choose a kick first. I'm going to use that one. Kind of forgot the one that I used initially. So hopefully that's it. Anyways, it's a nice sounding kick. Here, I'll go through the kicks really quick. Pretty nice pack, actually. The kicks are nice. I use them in my own production. So if you like my music, then these are all just extracted from my tracks. Very tried and true, these kicks. Save it. I'm just going to bring this all the way to the beginning of our timeline. Let's just remove any layers we're not using. And I'm going to rename that layer kick. Zoom in here. Second thing I'm going to do is a little gain staging so that we don't explode the output. We don't clip. So I'm just going to double click here on the layer, type -12. That's going to be our gain stage. And let's load up Serum. All right, so the very first thing I'm going to want to do is a couple sort of preliminary habitual things. First thing in Serum is I'm going to go to the global area. Click on this 4x mode. Has to do with the quality. I think it's some oversampling thing, but it's better quality, so why not choose it, right? Second thing I'm going to click is double click for typable values, and that essentially means exactly what it says. You can type on parameters and manually type in values. It's pretty convenient. Let's get out of here. Next thing I'm going to do is create a piece of MIDI. So I'm just going to go to insert MIDI clip, go down here to our piano roll, 16th notes, and let's go down to the 0 octave, B for brush tool, and let's do it in D sharp. And another one. Get out my brush tool. I'm gonna make these a little bit shorter. Okay, highlight both, loop. Let's change our grid up here to 16th notes as well. And a little gain staging for Serum, -12. And here's something I normally do, is on the master, I'm just gonna throw a limiter on there. I'm gonna use the Ableton one. And that's because since we brought the volume down so low for gain staging, I just want to boost it back up out of my speakers so I don't have to crank up my sound card too loud. So let's just do, say 8 decibel gain over here on our limiter. All right, so let's open up Serum. By default, it opens up to this saw wave. It's a pretty good saw wave, actually, that it generates. But the cool thing about Serum, some of you may know, that there's a bunch of different saw waves actually to choose from. So kind of makes it unique. Usually there's only, the 4 basic waves: saw, sine, triangle, square, pulse. But in Serum, there's a bunch of different ones. So it's a lot of possibility for personalizing your bass. Just to make life easy, I'm going to use the default saw wave because it sounds good, and why not? Everybody can follow along. So let's go ahead and continue doing some of the basics here before we get started. When we look at Serum here, try to not focus on any of the parameters surrounding the areas we're talking about, because it'll kind of help you understand synthesis a little bit better and make Serum look a little less overwhelming. For example, we're just going to focus on this module right here, the oscillator module. So try and just blur out the rest of the parameters here for a moment and just look at this with me, this oscillator module. First thing I'm going to do is close this random knob. What this is a way for Serum to emulate analog synths. Basically, what that means is the analog synths consistently are running through the waveform's journey. So as it goes through the timeline, it'll constantly be running over and over, back and forth, cycling this journey. And that means that every time you press a note down on the keyboard, that it's starting at a different point. It's re-triggering at a different point. This is pretty much the main culprit for why people's bass kind of sounds unreliable or just kind of sounds flabby and sucks, is that their bass is starting at different parts of the wave, giving you a different tone and making it sound less reliable. Reliable meaning it's not the same thing every time. It's running essentially. So we're going to turn this random all the way down, and that allows us to use this phase knob here to dictate exactly where we're going to have our start point. So we're going to have our start point at 180. I may move that around. We'll see. Let's see what we got so far. All right, so at the moment, no filtering, just saw wave. If yours sounds like that, then you're following along correctly. We're going to just stop looking at this oscillator module for now, and we're going to jump over here to the filter module. and, just try and blur out everything around this area that we're working with here. We're going to have to use a low pass filter here to filter out some of the saw wave. So if I just play back our bass and turn on the filter, so this is essentially the same thing as an EQ, a little bit different algorithm. But what we want to do is we want this to open, that's opening the cutoff, and close every time a note happens, right? So that's going to give us that plucky sound. Let's just zero out the filter really quick, no resonance. Make sure all these other things, except for pan, is zeroed out. So let's turn the cutoff down, resonance, so forth. We're going to need to control this cutoff knob. And I'm going to use an envelope for that. So let's go down here and look at this area here, the envelope module. And something to note is that envelope 1 is always sent to the amplitude or the volume. So it's currently being used already. We're going to use the next available envelope, envelope 2, and we're going to just drag and drop that onto the cutoff. Nice and easy. The cool thing about Serum, drag and drop modulation. Envelopes are a way to shape the tone. You can kind of look at an envelope as maybe like my mouth talking, right? It's shaping each word that comes out, and the different shape that you give it will shape the overall tone. So let's just make something a little more plucky. And how we're going to do that is we are going to first go over here to the matrix, and I'm going to set my envelope 2, which is already going to the cutoff, to bipolar mode. So bipolar mode means that when the modulation occurs, it will go from the lowest point to the highest point. And what you're seeing right here is you're seeing the amount that I'm allowing envelope 2 to modulate the cutoff, right? So that means if I close this, click on this little blue thing and I close it all the way down, we're not letting envelope 2 here affect the cutoff very much. As I dial that up, we're giving it more and more range in which it can affect or control, rather, the cutoff. Let's just play it. You can see that little node jumping around, and that's essentially the range we're giving it to affect the cutoff. Let's just put this somewhere around here to start with. We'll shape that a little bit better. Okay, so if we look at envelope 2, we can kind of use the image here to design a tone visually. So you could also use these knobs down here. So I'm just going to move the sustain down. Let's go 0% sustain. And let's figure out something here that I might like. I'm going to go shorter, shorter, shorter. And I'm going to click this lock button here. And that is going to let me zoom in to my workspace. Let's actually type in 16th notes. That automatically generates the size of a 16th note based on the BPM we have chosen up here. So let's see how close we are here. And I'm actually going to turn the attack down as well. Nice. So as you can see, we're almost there. Actually, all we did again was drag and drop envelope 2 to the filter and turned the sustain down and just shorten that decay. So we're very close already. Let me just go back to where I was. Let's talk about filters really quick. We're going to use a low pass filter here. And kind of a cool thing about Serum is that it offers all these different kinds of filters here to choose from. They're different algorithms that basically do a very similar thing. But again, normally synths only have the 3 basic ones, but they give us multiple low pass filters and high pass filters. So kind of a cool thing about Serum. I'm going to use this MG Low 18, which is a emulation of Moog 18 decibel filter, I'm pretty sure. It's very unique to Serum. since we're using serum, might as well, right? And I'm just going to leave everything how we have it right now, but I'm going to tweak my cutoff a little bit. And I think I'm going to just tweak the amount here. And we'll notice that as I move this amount upwards, or giving myself more range, we may get a pluckier tone. So I'm going to just keep it low, keep the amount, or the range of the amount, sort of low, and just trying to hear as I open this up that we get more plucky or more aggressive. I'm going to turn the cutoff up a bit. Do the same thing. Okay. And I'm going to mess with my cutoff amount, my modulation amount on my cutoff, and where the cutoff start point is a little bit here, just to get something sounding nice. Nice. So as I close the cutoff, we get something a little bit less plucky, a little bit more muffled. And so forth. So you can see there's a lot of functionality here. I'm just going to turn up our serum. All right, nice. So let's go over to envelope 1. And as you can see, envelope 1, like I said, is affecting the amplitude currently. So that means that we're getting a little bit of attack here on our amplitude. And I'm just going to zero that out just right now. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to type 1/16 just to put it exactly where the 16th note is. And that means that the amplitude, or the volume, will be complete after each 16th note, right? We're trying to make these notes not run into each other by doing that. And let's just mess with our sustain a little bit. All right. So already, you know, with very little movements, this sounds pretty good already. I mean, this is already nice. Many producers would just use this and run with it and make really great music. So no problem there. You know, 3 movements and a little tweak to our envelopes, and we're pretty much there already. Let's see how it sounds with our kick. Pretty good. Pretty good already. Okay, so there you go. There's a little explanation of how easy bass lines really are. Of course, there's many things you can do after bass. Post-processing kind of takes it to a more personalized level. But in terms of synthesis, very, very simple. You know, you choose the saw wave. You make sure it's re-triggering at the same spot every time. You enable a low-pass filter of your choice. You modulate an available envelope to the cutoff. You tweak your envelope decay. Tweak your amplitude envelope slightly. And that's it. So really, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movements. And a lot you can do actually right here for personalization. As I move my decay around, you'll hear that we get a different tone altogether. Pretty cool there too. Different. Also very good. Let's go back to how I had it. I think it was somewhere around here, I think. For this track, I think I'm going to keep it a little bit open like that, a little bit more, you know, metal sounding. But you know, you do whatever you want. It's your track, right? So actually, with this bass, you can do a number of things already. We can, change the note too. You don't have to be in D sharp if you don't want. Just highlight that and let's go up. See what we can do. Let's check out this. Nice. Sounds good. Let's go all the way down. So as you can see, the bass just works, pretty easily. Let's talk about notes really quick while we're here. In Chromagon, in my music, you won't hear me make a bass in anything really above E. Occasionally I have a bass in F, but it's processed so much that it kind of just harmonizes more with D, really. So you'll hear a lot of artists in other genres like Full On and even Forrest, use these higher notes, like F, G, A, even high C. But you don't normally hear that in my music, or in dark progressive. Really, dark progressive is the nighttime stuff, at least. The stuff that I'm doing is traditionally a lower octave, lower note bass. Little food for thought here for you. My favorite note that I like to use for a lot of chromagon is actually lower than this. It would be A sharp -1, so way far down here. Very low, very difficult to work with. As some of you may know, the lower you go in the octave, the more sort of flabby the bass kind of sounds. It becomes very difficult to distinguish the bass character. But after a lot of processing and just working with it, I've grown to really love this note. Let's hear it without any processing and see how it sounds. Sounds pretty good. Like that. Wow. Anyways, a lot of my music is made in -1 A sharp. I doubt you'll hear a lot of artists doing that. It's just difficult to use, and you can make great music in all the notes. So there's no rules here. But that's kind of what I would do. So let's go back to D sharp for this instance. Let's play it again. Very nice. All right, so let's get into using some Serum effects here. Let's open up Serum again. And I'm going to try and keep inside Serum for now, just in case, some of you who don't have a lot of external plugins or third-party plugins, you can still follow along and you can understand how you can tailor your bass a little bit different, because really anybody can get this far, and this might get boring for you eventually. So let's see what else we can do inside Serum. Eventually I will get to some third-party plugins as well. All right, so I don't really use the Serum effects too much. However, they're all standard effects, right? Let's look at what we got here. We got compressors and delays, choruses, phasers. All these things are just the standard channel effect plugins that we all have. If you have any DAW, you've seen these plugins before. So a lot of the same things are reiterated in all of these plugins. They're a little more unique, but ultimately they work exactly the same. Something to note here within Serum is that the arrangement here of where the plugin, or where the effect rather, is, will determine the signal flow, right? So the signal flow in the effects go from top to bottom. So if compressor's first, that's going to be the first effect that we hear. If hyperdimension is second, then it will go from the compressor to the hyperdimension and so forth, right? So you can rearrange the signal flow here to get some interesting different effects once you set this stuff up. For the first thing I'm going to use is, let's do a little distortion. And I'm just going to do some very light distortion on this track. Let's just turn that down and see sort of what this sounds like. Tube sounds nice. Let's see what else we got. Let's use this downsample one. Actually, all of these algorithms sounded really cool. A bunch of them, you know, this diode, actually, I really like that one a lot, but let's do something kind of unique and different. Let's use this, this downsample algorithm here. Let's just dial back a little bit on our mix. Turn it off. Do something like that. Let's also do some compression. See what that sounds like. I'm going to leave the threshold somewhere around here. You know, I can't make the video too long, so I can't really go through every single effect here and how to use them, but how to use a compressor works the same way in every DAW, right? So you can learn how to use compressor with a very quick YouTube search. Tons of videos about that. But let's just turn our threshold down somewhere around here. Less threshold means more compression. Let's leave our ratio there, sure. Attack and release. Yeah, let's just leave that. Do a little bit less mix here. And let's use the multiband. So the multiband function allows us to compress various bands in the frequency spectrum differently. So this obviously gives you, you know, a high band, mid band, and a low band. And I'm just going to move those around a little bit until I get something, you know, that I like. That sounds pretty good. You know, we're going to do a lot of subtlety here with all these effects because the bass is very good already, but I just kind of want to lean it one way or another here. What's the next thing I can do that might be interesting? Let's do a little of this hyper dimension. This is sort of a unison effect and also utilizes some sort of stereo width here, but if we just turn it on here, you'll see that it's not usable as is, so. Kind of sounds cool, actually. But no, let's whip it into shape here first. I'm going to turn the mix all the way down here on the dimension. I'm not going to use that. Let's just use a little of this hyper dimension thing. And I'm going to turn the rate all the way down so we're not hearing any of the LFO happening. And let's just, let's hear what that sounds like. Do a little more unison. Nice. You can hear how the detune really sort of detunes the left side from the right side a little bit, and that gives us a cool little effect here for personalizing our bass. As I move it around, you'll hear all these different tones that this knob gives us. Turn up the mix so you can hear it. Nice. I like that. That sounds pretty cool. All right, let's see what else we can do within CRM. I like these effects. They're actually kind of cool. I think it would be nice to add a little sort of modernization to this bass. And a lot of big trendy thing these days is a little bit of stereo presence on the bass or a little stereo width. So let's use this delay effect here. And let's just sort of emulate the Haas effect, which is if we slightly delay the left from the right or the right from the left, that it adds a perception of width. Our ears kind of get confused and we perceive width that way. Let's try and emulate that. I'm going to turn the feedback all the way down so we're not actually delaying the bass. We're just getting a little bit of latency on the left and the right. Let's go to something kind of quick. Let's go to 64ths, and on this one I'll do something not so fast. Let's do 30 seconds. And I'm also going to use this filter here, this bandpass filter, to sort of hone in on a good area where I'd like the actual delay to occur. And let's just go, let's do something right there. I don't know. We'll have to see. And let's do a little bit, let's see what that sounds like. Interesting. I like it. Yeah, you know, stereo width in a bass is kind of, you know, blasphemous, really, right? And actually, we're probably going to mono the bass in the end, but this is all just creating a little character on our bass, trying to make it a little more unique and sort of bring it into the modern age a little bit. Let's hear what that sounds like again. I'm digging it. I like it. So let's keep going here. Let's do some EQ. See what we can get going here. I'm going to leave the low end. Low end sounds pretty good in the bass already, but I want a little more pluck here. So let's just use this frequency knob here in this 2-band EQ to, let's go to somewhere around 10K. Yeah, let's do that. And let's just do a little gain. You can see here that I'm just boosting the high frequencies there. Cool. Nice, plucky, and actually really brings out that distortion we have up here nicely. Let's just let's whip it into shape a little bit by messing with our frequency knob. Cool, and let's actually open up this filter here, and we'll just filter out a little bit of that top end. Yeah, I like that. That's cool. So we just kind of added some additional harmonics with this EQ here just to give it a little bit different tone. And then we sort of kind of whipped it into shape here with the low pass filter. So we just kind of shaved off a little bit of that high end. And I'm liking where we're going here so far. I like it. Very cool, different. We utilized a lot of these effects here. But let's jump to some third-party plugins just to clean up our bass a little bit. Just going to open up the plugins area and let's just load a fab filter here. I'm going to use Pro Q3. Really good plugin here. And I'm just going to make sure that we are engaged on linear phase mode because I do not want the phase to be affected as we EQ. And we'll talk about what phase is later, but essentially it's just more accurate, a little more accurate. You don't want to use linear phase all over everything though. It's a common misconception. Just use it on the bass. Everything else, don't really worry about it. Also for the analyzer, let's just make sure that our resolution is on maximum. And I'm going to put a low cut, in other words, a high pass filter here really quick, just to shave off unwanted low end. And let's just double click and let's just go to 30 by default. And you know, you can't really hear anything below 30. You can't really hear anything below 40. So as far as I'm concerned, all this area down here is just useless information, really. What it ends up doing is it ends up taking up headroom, because even though you can't hear the data down here, it's still passing through into the output. And what that means is that we'll be hitting the red, we'll be clipping on the master before the presence of volume is even where we want it to be. And that's because we can't hear that data, right? So let's just become rigorous in our low cutting. Let's just make sure we cut everything below 30 and 40, and maybe all the way up to 50. We'll see how our bass sits after the processing, but we want to cut as much low as possible, which gives us in turn more gain at the end, at the final stage. So let's leave it there and let's see what we got. Nice. I'm going to do some high cut here as well. Let's see what we can get. Typical thing with bass lines that I found is that there's always a sort of muddy or hollow around 300 that needs to be pulled out. So if I just click on 300 here, I'm just going to boost it, and we'll kind of hear this sort of weird, hollowy, boxy sort of tone. I'm just going to pull that out ever so slightly. Let's go down maybe 2 decibels or so. Cleaned it up a lot, actually. Yeah, sounds good. The thing with EQing is that a little bit does a lot. So I really don't do too much cutting or attenuation is really the word. I don't pull out anything more than about 6 decibels. And normally I'm not even doing anywhere near that. Normally it's about 3 decibels. So I find myself realizing that if I'm needing to EQ out more than, let's say 3 decibels or 4 decibels, I really should go back to my processing, and I think the error will be found there rather than using EQ to sort of, botch or fix some of your problems with your tone. Just go back a few steps and fix it there. EQ is really the spice, it's not the salt, but it's the final salt as you get your plate, right? You get your plate and you put just a little bit on there. That's what EQ is. Don't let it be the main ingredient. EQs just have a tone. So let's just try to not hear that tone too much. So I'm liking this. This sounds pretty cool so far. I think I'm going to do a little bit of a steeper low cut here just by default. Normally I'm doing somewhere around between 24 and 48. Let's just do 24 for now. Yep, sounds pretty good to me. So let's get into some post-processing here.